Yo guys, I've got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for a brand new, very special video here on the channel. We have came to that point of time in the year once again where it's time to celebrate the Skylanders Awards Ceremony of 2022. Now this is an annual tradition on my channel, but the only tradition this series has, it seems, is that it gets later each and every year. So I'm going to continue with that tradition this year and release it even later than the year beforehand. And it's actually a very special date I've chosen to release this year's Skylanders Awards Ceremony because it is premiering on my 21st birthday. My god, this grown man is playing Skylander games and reviewing the characters on the internet for a living. And you know what, I wouldn't have it any other way. I owe everything to you guys for being here. Hopefully by the time this goes live we will have hit 3,000 subscribers, which is the best birthday present I could have hoped for. And so what's the gimmick for this year's award ceremony? Because every single year I try to do something new with these videos. Last year obviously I had you guys voting on my choice for nominees. Well, this year I got rid of the nominees and the runner-ups altogether. This year we have nothing but winners because this is what we're going to call the Skylanders Award Quickees. You heard that right here, folks. We're going to be just blazing through awards in 60 seconds or less, maybe more from time to time. I do ramble a lot like I am for this intro right here. But naturally, we have 100 exclusive categories, so there's going to be 100 awards given out in one video, and that's why it's called for Quickies. We're just going to blaze through, look at the winners, and then move on. So without further ado, let's get this awards ceremony begun. Our first 10 awards are known as the Elemental Awards, which are basically given out to the best Skylander of their respective elements, which means that garnering the Magic Award is going to be double trouble. Obviously, he's getting this award not only for his design, but also his gameplay, which is really overpowering and really fun. Flashwing can be same said for. She's the Earth Victor, as she has one of the most creative designs, one of the most intricately detailed designs at that, and she's a powerhouse to play with. Then receiving the Water Award as a character so beloved that his Series 2 WoW Power wound up getting named after someone who found him to be their favourite Skylander of all time, so God bless Riley, and this is in his honour, you could go as far to saying. And the Fire Award obviously goes to my boy Igniter because his design is epic and his gameplay is overpowered as cherry on top of a cake. Then the Tech Award is given to Drobot because the amalgamation of a robot and a dragon is awesome and his gameplay is incredibly overpowering and addictive. But then the Life Award goes to Bumbleblast, an absolute powerhouse of a unit with a design that's more than just a tree. Obviously, the beehive and the bees themselves create a sharp colour contrast, and it's just a really intricate and well-detailed figurine and design by extent. Then our Undead Award goes to Crypt King, a Trapmaster with a very standout design, I suppose you could go as far to say, reflected upon Egyptian culture, and the black and the gold contrast here very nicely for one hell of a figurine that in-game becomes so much more overpowered than you can possibly comprehend of. What an excellent undead character indeed. But our Light Award goes to Nightlight, yet again another powerhouse unit who can knock up enemies and make it so they never land on the ground and never even have a chance at hitting you. Nightlight is just a loop of pure destruction and I love it. The Dark Award goes to Hudsicle, the dark villain of the Imaginators, mind you, and his gameplay, once again, incredibly fun, unique to him, and it's personality driven as well, in the fact that Hudsicle is rather mysterious and intimidating. But the Air Award, the final of all the Elemental Awards, goes to Wildstorm, a character whose gameplay is so over the top and overpowering, and his figurine of which there is intricate details that makes it really stand out on the shelf. It's very personality driven with lots of sharp contrasts and colours to truly make Wildstorm stand out as the greatest air Skylander, hence why he won the award. So, in conclusion, that, my friends, is our first 10 awards of the evening, the Elemental Awards. Next up is the Core Award, which is given out to the greatest core character, and no one's surprised, that is Igniter winning this for God knows how many years in a row. Igniter is a core which is exemplary in his field. He is a powerhouse of a unit with a very intricate and really well thought through design that makes him stand out in a unique manner that no other Scarder could possibly hope to come close to in terms of just raw, pulsating awesomeness. Igniter, without a shadow of a doubt nor hint of sarcasm, deserves the Core Award. Next up is the Giant Award, which is being won by yet another familiar face, because we're talking about Swarm, a giant who might not have the strongest design, but his maneuverability in combat makes him fast-paced and really overpowered. You really can't fault this giant in terms of his gameplay. Next up is the Swapper Award, which is being won by Boomjet for perfect amalgamation you could want for a swapper, as he possesses great speed, great power, as well as projectiles that have a risk and reward type system to them. You can charge them up and risk being hit, but if you unleash them in their charged up state, they deal so much damage even. In fact, it's even got my mouth stuttering from intimidation from just how good and well balanced this character is. Next up, we have the Trapmaster Award, and there's only one Trapmaster worthy of such a prestigious honour, and that's obviously going to be Crypt King. We're going to keep this short because we've talked about him previously, but what makes Crypt King so good is the combination of attacks he has in combat to make it so enemies really do stand no chance against him, and his obliterative nature is a fine example set as to how a Trapmaster should feel in Skarner's Trap Team. After all, they are the flagship gimmick characters of the game, so Crypt King being a fine example of that is what has earned him the Trapmaster Award here today. Next up is the Supercharger Award, which is being given out to Hammerslam Bowser. I currently don't have my regular version of him, but the dark version still showcases how well his design fits in with Skarner's, as well as how it represents the character and his origins. Hammerslam Bowser is obviously from Nintendo and plays exclusively on Nintendo systems, and makes it worth it to get the Nintendo versions of the games to play as such a badass character, because you aren't going to get the same experience on PlayStation, even if the graphics and loading screens and general performance of the game is better. I could care less when you have a character this much fun to play as exclusively on Nintendo systems. Now, what's really cool is that the design is very cartoonish, which is why it fits in with the rest of the Skarders, and obviously he still has his shell and his look and his personality derivative from those original Nintendo games he's based upon. So Hammerslam Bowser is not only a fine character when it comes to amalgamating two worlds together in his design, but the gameplay is just top notch. Truly, his attacks combine together really well and very much reward the player for their concentration and skill in utilizing the moves in conjunction with one another, and Bowser is just a character who's so much fun to play as. And again, I just love how they amalgamated his Nintendo past with the Skarner's art style. It's what makes for the perfect supercharger, hence why Hammerslam Bowser is getting the Supercharger Award this evening. Next up is the Revamped Award, given to the greatest revamped supercharger, which is going to be Bone Bash Roller Brawl. Once again, I don't have the regular version, but the legendary version does just fine. In fact, if anything, the legendary version is more epic, as the gold and the black really contrast each other nicely, and it fits the design quite well indeed. But Bone Bash Roller Brawl is a character which had perfection to improve upon, and whilst she was unsuccessful, she came pretty damn close, because this version of Roller Brawl, her attacks chain together just as well as the original Roller Brawl does, for problems that she's a little more slow paced. But outside of that, when you compare it to all the other revamps, her gameplay is capable of combining attacks in a manner that's unique to her and really fitting for the game's sense of speed. This is superchargers we're talking about here, making Bone Bash Roller Brawl overall a really great revamp that still captures the spirit and the awesomeness of the original, whilst also creating its own identity and making it so when compared to other revamped forms, Bone Bash Roller Brawl still winds up on top. So next up, we have the Vehicle Award, given to the greatest vehicle from Skylanders Superchargers, and there is only one vehicle worthy of this honour, that being the Gold Rusher, a toy which is really fun to interact with because it functions really well, and the colour contrast is fantastic. It really stands out on the shelf with a unique toy design and a colour contrast which just is aesthetically pleasing to the eyes, you could go as far to say. But then there's the in-game counterpart of this vehicle, which is fast-paced. It functions incredibly well as the attacks are overpowered and it controls perfectly, so naturally I couldn't think of any more vehicle worthy of this award than the Gold Rusher. Next up is the Sensei Award, yet another self-explanatory category where the winner is the greatest sensei of everyone from the Imaginators lineup, and that honour is obviously going to be bestowed upon Flarewolf, a character whose design is intricate and really cool. I mean, that cannon is textured with a massive dragon. First of all, I love dragons, and second of all, that just makes for an excellent figurine all around, and for contrast is very nice, makes the design stand out thanks to the reds and the oranges, mind you, and naturally it's not only the textures that makes the figurine excellent as well as the design of the over-the-top weaponry, but it's when you place this toy onto the portal and unleash an absolute force to be reckoned with. His personality is wild and unique, which really matches up with the figurine, mind you. But next up is going to be the Villain Award, given to the greatest villain to come from a Sensei lineup in Skylanders Imaginators, and that villain is going to be Tycoon Crow, a character who is really over top both in personality as well as damage output, because his projectiles are powerful enough as is, but you can power them up further by combining his attacks, which is clever. Obviously we've mentioned this before, and for Tycoon Crow that's no different. But on top of that, the personality is just so unique and charismatic. Whenever I'm playing as this character, I'm immediately immersed by his gameplay because I have so much fun listening to his one-liners and hearing what he has to say about certain situations. Tycoon Crow is just a bundle of joy, I suppose, wrapped up into one sweet package that has an intimidating figurine, excellent gameplay, and a personality which is something that I really invest into and really care for. You could go as far to say making Tycoon Crow a worthy winner of the Villain Award, you could go as far to saying. And so the next award is known as the Gimmick Award, clearly given out to the best Skylanders gimmick, and that is why you see my trap display before you, because the best gimmick has to be trapping. Being able to take a lifeless toy and place a villain's essence into it to bring life to toys is a pure genius concept, and playing as villains and tag teaming between them is incredibly fun. So overall this gimmick is really intuitive, and it's played about with really well, both physically and within the game, mind you, hence why Trappin gets the Gimmick Award. Next up is the Mini Award, clearly given to the greatest Mini, which has to be none other than Breeze. Not only is she cute, but she's powerhouse in game, making her everything you want from a Mini, and she's also quite prestigious, being rare and expensive and all that. So Breeze is an honour to have her in my collection, and better yet, it's an honour to be giving her this award this evening. Next up is the Lightcore Award, which is clearly being given to Prison Break, as he is the most iconic Lightcore, and in fact, you can't say the word as a Lightcore to a Skylanders fan without them immediately thinking of Prison Break. He is the literal symbol of the Lightcore class, since the effect is not only strong and bright, but it's also incredibly fitting for the character's design. And rather than I continue to tell you about the Lightcore effect, let's instead showcase it. And as you can see, now that Prison Break is on the portal, his crystal hands, they're beaming up. The beam is literally supreme, so the fact that this figurine looks magnificent and the Lightcore effect in and of itself is nothing to scoff at is what makes Prison Break worthy of the Lightcore Award tonight. Next up is the Design Award, which is going to be presented to Chain Reaction. Now, it's quite self-explanatory as to why this design is as good as it is. In fact, it is the peak and the pinnacle when it comes to character design work on any Skylanders figurine, hence why he's getting the award, I suppose. And naturally, what's awesome about this character is his chained theming. I mean, he has a beard made of bicycle chains, he has chainsaws, not to mention that sharp colour contrast and just the natural buffiness of this character, giving him a personality. So just all the intricate details and the idea, the concept behind this character, it's unique, it's incredibly imaginative, and it's ultimately a grand showcase of what makes the Skylander character designs all unique, and he stands out for all the right reasons, being a fine example of character design. Next up is the Repose Award, and the winner might come as a surprise to some of you, because I'm actually going to be presenting the Repose Award to Series 2 Prison Break, a character whose wow power is insane, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about solely the repose of this figurine and the intricate details it possesses. They cram just so many details into this figurine. Not only do you have the green and the contrast with the rock colours, but also he's striking an intimidating pose as he's roaring down his enemies. There's no pupils there to add to the intimidation, so not only is it a really well moulded figurine, but the detail as well. The base even has the little crystal eruption to really showcase what this character is about, bring about his personality, highlight it, you could go as far to saying. And so all of these intricate details, how they're all woven together, is what makes Series 2 Prison Break such a fine repose. The Repose Repose Award is coming up next, and it's going to be presented to none other than Royal Double Trouble, a character who truly feels royal. The colours are really unique and they contrast each other for a really standout figurine. Like, seriously, he looks unlike any other variant, and that uniqueness alone makes him stand out. But the colours, they just look so nice together. Not only do they blend together well, but they contrast each other nicely to create for a colour palette that really fits the design, as well as creates its own unique visual style that for Royal Double Trouble just really does feel grand and absolutely awesome. I cannot fault this variant, which is why it's getting the award, mind you. These next two award categories involve variants that were obviously cut from the previous variant category to instead get categories of their own. So first up is the Legendary Award, being given to Legendary Igniter. Because of all of the legendaries, this one feels the most appropriate. Not only is Igniter a legendary character, but this colour palette really benefits his design. Like, the gold and the black is a sharp colour contrast, and then it really adds to the intricate details of the Series 2 Repose. The axe being black is also legendary. There is just literally nothing to fault about this legendary. And then the Dark Award next up is being given to Wildfire, since the silver and the black have a nice contrast and really create a different look between the two metals. It really draws attention more so to Wildfire's mane and then the rest of his body, and the flame and the red shield with the intricate face pattern embedded upon it. All of those combined with that silver and black contrasting colour palette are all very aesthetically pleasing and nice. So naturally this is just a really iconic dark variant that deserves the Dark Variant Award. We aren't quite done with variants yet though, because our next category is the Holiday Variant, where we can include any Christmas or Easter variants, but naturally the winner of the entire pool is going to be Jolly Bumble Blast, the very first Christmas chase variant, well, regular variant, and no doubt the most memorable of all of those said Christmas variants, as his colour palette is really cool. They really reflect the colours of Christmas. In fact, the bee having a red and white pattern makes it look like a candy cane, again a classic symbol of Christmas. His base is spray painted to look like it has snow on top of it. For red, for white, for green, they're all just iconic Christmas colours that contrast each other for a very nice design piece that contrasts in colours and really stands out on the shelf for all the right reasons. The design is fitting for Bumble Blast himself, so naturally this design does a great job of representing Christmas even, but it also does a great job at helping the figurine stand out with its sharp colour contrasts. The lighting has changed up drastically because the sun has set, so we're relying on natural lighting for the rest of today's award ceremony, and naturally we move on to the next award, that being the Elite Award, which is being given to Dino Rang, as his repose is legendary. The way the tail wraps around the pose, and the massive intimidating boomerangs, mind you, just their shape and their sharpness, it really presents Dino Rang as a force to be reckoned with, and it has this grand feeling to it. So Dino Rang was a character who was already really overpowered, but not only having an even more overpowered version of that, as well as an excellent repose for the figurine that really expands upon the original design, is ultimately what earns Dino Rang here the Elite Award. Next up comes the Chase Award, given out to the greatest chase, which is going to be none other than Golden Snow Flocked Light Core Prison Break, which is a bit of a mouthful, but we know already why I love the original Light Core Prison Break, and this chase variant takes his figurine to the next level, because first of all it's decked out in gold, which is awesome because gold is a very satisfying colour to look at. But on top of that, you also have the fuzzy snow on top. That would be a great texture, I can imagine. If only chase variants weren't this expensive, I would have taken them out of the box by now. But there's just a real exclusivity behind this figure, and it just looks amazing, and it's a massive honour to have this in the collection. And I'm sure for Golden Snow Flocked Light Core Prison Break even, I'm sure for him that this was a massive honour to receive the award tonight. It was definitely earned. The next award is the Guest Star Award, given out to the greatest Skylanders guest star, which means we have a returning award winner in the form of Hammerslam Bowser over here. We've explained already what makes this figurine so great, and those can also be applied to what makes him such a great guest star, so he definitely deserves this award, to say the least. So next up is the Iconic Award. This is the award I'm giving to a Skylander who I feel like is particularly iconic, a character who when you say the word Skylanders, he's synonymous with that word, he comes to mind immediately, and that Skylander is actually going to be trigger happy this year. I feel as though trigger happy, since he was one of the starter pack characters from the very first game over 10 years ago, he's definitely a character who stuck on people's minds between his personality and his addictive gameplay style. He's just a character that is hard to get out of your mind due to his natural uniqueness. The proportions are incredibly cartoony, and so he matches the visual style of the game perfectly, and he's just a great example of what's put into Skylanders and how much fun they can truly be, even when all you're doing is mashing buttons. Next up we have the Underrated Award, once again a very self-explanatory award given out to the Skylander who I feel like is the most underrated, and this year that's going to be Star Strike. Now, people constantly underestimate just how powerful this character is. You can really rack up damage with concentration, which really immerses you in the game further, because you cannot play this character whilst half asleep. You need to be able to reflect her projectiles, and that way you're dealing double damage from the projectile during its first swing at enemies, and then the second swing of a return back is dealing damage also. Her attacks really do combine together very well, and her moveset flows unlike any other, because she's the only Skylander in Swap Force who can attack in midair during a jump. So she plays really unique, and she's an absolute powerhouse, and yet nobody ever seems to acknowledge that. Star Strike deserves better, which is why she's so incredibly underrated. Next up is the Most Surprising Skylander Award, and this time the most surprising Skylander for me has to be Barbella, since when you look at her design there's nothing really to write home about. So naturally, when a Skylander has a design as weak as this one, you don't expect anything from the gameplay. Well, it would turn out after I placed Barbella onto the portal expecting for nothing special, what I got instead was something magnificent, and that shock, that surprise, that big difference between my expectation and reality is what made Barbella such a pleasant character, since her attacks chain together very well, she's very fast paced, and she's insanely powerful. Even by Sensei standards, she's more overpowered than most, so Barbella is certainly a character in game that is rivaled by very few people, but her design is incredibly lackluster, which is what led to my expectations of her being so low in the first place, which is why she was such a huge surprise when I got around to the gameplay portions of things, even making Barbella a worthy winner of the Surprising Award tonight. Next up is the Trap Sculpt Award, obviously an award given to the greatest trap sculpt of them all, and this year it's going to none other than the handstand slash bunny trap that can't seem to handstand, ironically. But what makes this one so cool is, first of all, the Easter Bunny design. It really brings out the bunny, but it's a double trap in the fact that when you look at it one way, it's a bunny, but then when you look at it the other way, it's a handstand. It's an incredibly clever design, which really does shift around with perspective, and so that natural cleverness and uniqueness the trap has behind it makes it distinctive, and it makes it really stand out amongst all the other trap sculpts, giving it a worthy opportunity to become the winner of the Trap Sculpt Award here tonight. The next award category is something that most people often forget about, which is magic items. Now, most people often forget about them because they don't do all that much to benefit your gameplay. There is one exception, which is our winner for tonight, that being the Healing Elixir. This is a classical item that never leaves my mind, because during desperate moments we require desperate measures, and that's exactly what the Healing Elixir is great for. In your final most desperate hours, you can place it onto a portal and it can become a literal lifesaver. I have never forgotten about the Healing Elixir in a pickle. It's a very convenient item which is well worth the price of admission, and so its memorability and just how useful this magic item is, and all of these combining factors even, that's what makes the Healing Elixir worthy of the Magic Award here tonight. Next up is the Athletic Award, given out to the most athletic Skylander, which has to be Lightning Rod. I mean, he's a champion of his own Sky Olympic Games, for Pete's sake. That's per his backstory anyway. He's an excellent javelin player, but if you look at those muscles and how buffed up he's became, he'd be good at pretty much anything involving strength and power, which is most sports when you come to think about it. And the lack of legs means there's no friction from the ground, so he would be the quickest as well. Naturally, there are few Skylanders more more athletic than Lightning Rod, which is why when you think of the most athletic Skylanders, Lightning Rod comes to mind, and it makes him worthy of this award. Next up comes the Dragon Award, obviously the award given to the greatest dragon, which is going to be Drobot. I bring out a Series 2 here because for the Repose Award he would have been a runner-up. But that being said, I love the intricate designs and how things really fix together, but he's an amalgamation of a robot and a dragon, so that alone is an incredibly cool concept, and the intricate details really add to that aesthetic, but the gameplay is just incredibly destructive and satisfying, so Drobot is certainly a dragon to be remembered. Next up is the Swordsman, awarded to the greatest Skylanders, well, swordsman, and in this case that's going to be Igniter, not only my favourite swordsman but my favourite Skylander of all time, and he gets this you know, honour not lightly. It's his absolute awesomeness. I mean, he wields that sword with such skill and honour. How could I give any other swordsman the award here when Igniter is truly talented and epic in every conceivable fashion, from the design to the gameplay? I could ramble on for hours about how good this character is and how great a swordsman he is, but we're going to move on to the next awards already, otherwise this wouldn't quite be for Quickees now, would it? Next up is the Speediest Award, given out to a go-to Skylander for most speedrunners, that being Boomjet, because he just has so many tools that make for a fine speedster. I mean, he has a great sense of power, but his speed, he can charge up so much momentum and speed with so much quick and easiness to it that you just absolutely rocket through levels. And on top of that, in Trap Team, he's a go-to speedrunner as he can perform the double jump glitch with a villain alongside him for the tag team. So naturally, his capabilities exceed that of most regular speedsters, and that's what makes Boomjet go above and beyond to truly earn the gold for this here award. Next up comes the Most Approved Award, this award being given out to the Skylander that improved the most over time, and winning this award is going to be Terrafin. Now, Elite Terrafin is a stand-in for Sharkshooter Terrafin, who unfortunately couldn't join us for today's awards ceremony. Now, the reason why Terrafin is here on the list is because for him to go from this slow-paced, overhyped piece of garbage to Sharkshooter Terrafin is a true showcase of how improved a Skylander can become over time, because Sharkshooter Terrafin is everything regular Terrafin cannot be. He's far more unique with his attack choices, they flow together far more smoothly with more fast-pacedness behind his design and his gameplay, so naturally the blocky armor also looks great as a little add-on there. But point is, naturally Sharkshooter Terrafin has a massive disparity on my ranking list from the original Terrafin, really emphasizing how much of an improvement Terrafin went through over time, which is why Terrafin, and more importantly his Sharkshooter counterpart, they have earned the Most Improved Award at tonight's award ceremony. Pick the winner for this next award category was an easy task, as the Coolest Weapon Award is without a doubt going to Shortcut. I mean, his weapon is a massive pair of titanium scissors which are twice the size of him. That is just legendary. I mean, there is no other Skylanders weaponry that comes remotely similar to this piece of gear, so naturally this adds to Shortcut's design to make him all the more distinctive and unique. And so snipping up enemies with scissors not only makes Shortcut's gameplay unique, but it's just part of what makes the design so cool, seeing a weapon that you wouldn't see anywhere else, and naturally that's what makes Shortcut's scissors worthy of the Coolest Weapon Award. Next up comes an award category that I myself would know an awful lot about, because I have glorious hair to call my own. So what Skylander is going to be receiving for Glorious Hair Award, I hear you asking? Well, there's going to be Torch, of course. I about dropped her as she had her reveal there, but all this being said, just look at that magnificent head of hair. Just for luscious locks and the attention to detail. I mean, the hair is literally on fire, and that attention to detail is what makes this figurine so spectacular. But on top of that, she can use her hair as a lethal weapon. She whips her hair back and forth, and it's incredibly satisfactory to use that to knock back enemies. The hair for this character is the absolute definition of glory. You look up glory in the dictionary, what you'll find is a screenshot of Torch's hair. Her hair is just that good. Next up is the Most Cultural Award, which is going to be won by none other than Firecracken, as he is an excellent reflection of Chinese culture, since his design is based on the Chinese New Year's Dragon Parade balloon. In fact, he even turns into this parade dragon for one of his attacks. It's not a balloon, I do apologise for that inaccuracy, but point is, for parade dragon for Chinese New Year is so clearly visible in this guy's design. I mean, first of all, he shoots off fireworks everywhere and has an incredibly wild personality, again to match that for Chinese New Year, but just for colours, for shape of his head and tail, they're just so abundantly clearly a Chinese parade dragon. So that clear comparison to be made is what makes this such a fine reflection of Chinese culture, because at the end of the day, if you can't see the comparisons there, then they failed with creating this design as a cultural one in the first place. But Firecracken is just really great at sharing this culture with the whole of the world in a design which is compact, detailed. I mean, even the armor looks like ancient Chinese armor, so the detail in there is second to none, and I just love a sharp color contrast. It really makes Firecracken stand out on the shelf for all the right reasons. Next up is the Catchphrase Award, which is being given out to the Skylander with the greatest catchphrase, and so that honour is bestowed upon Funnybone. Now, what makes his catchphrase as good as it is even is for different meanings you can take from it. I mean, having a bone to pick with someone means that there's trouble there, there's beef there, as you can put it in slang terms, I suppose. But, you know, if that just makes Funnybone sound intimidating to enemies, which is a direct juxtaposition to what the design looks like, because Funnybone is rather quite cute, but seeing him in this intimidating fashion with the tone and the dialogue delivery of this catchphrase, it just really brings out his personality. And plus, he's made of bones, he literally has a bone to pick, so the literal meaning, the more subtle meaning, either way you spin it, this catchphrase is exceptional and the best Skylanders has to offer, which is why Funnybone gets the Catchphrase Award. Next up is the Companionship Award. This award is given out to the Skylander who best incorporates their companionship into best in bad guys, and Sonic Boom, our winner, she has more than companionship that she fights enemies with. She fights as a family. This is the greatest form companionship can take up, and so naturally you see Sonic Boom's baby on the base alongside her, and Sonic Boom just has a sense of pride about her. It's a really personality driven figurine, and in game this is an absolute unit here, because Sonic Boom can power up her babies and the babies will do anything to protect her. It's a really great dynamic which they replicated in later games thanks to the success of this original family model. So Sonic Boom truly is the greatest Skylander at expressing companionship and family, so that's why she has earned this award at tonight's awards ceremony, mind you. Next up comes the most expensive award. Now, chase variants are exempt from this here category, which means instead taking home the award is Robo. We all know how notoriously rare and expensive this character has gotten over the years. His price just continues to go up because they're not producing any more for figurine, and because he came out at the very end of Imaginator's lineup, they didn't really make many of the figures to begin with, so naturally Robo's price is skyrocketing, and for rarity and for price tag is worth it for the most part, because in-game this character is an absolute unit and he's so much fun to play. He's incredibly fast-paced, his personality is on point, and his design is definitely nothing to scoff at either. It's probably why they saved him for last, knowing that he was one of the coolest designs of the entirety of the cast. So Robo most certainly has earned the most expensive award at tonight's award ceremony. Our next award category is the Fragile Award, which is given out to the most fragile Skylander figurine, and in this case it's going to be Hex, because this figurine is notoriously fragile. You see numerous pictures on the internet of Hex having lost her head, her arms, or even both, and so the flimsiness of this figurine is an understatement to say the least. By some miracle, mine is still intact, which probably makes this the most rarest Skylander on the entirety of the planet, because you very rarely see an intact Hex. So naturally, with Hex's notorious fragility, I suppose is a word now, but with that notoriousness is what has helped Hex earned this award here tonight. Next up is the Universal Award, given out to the Skylander that probably has the most universal appeal of any Skylander, and that is going to be Pop Fizz, since you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who doesn't love this character, or at least at the bare minimum like him. And could you blame him? This character has so much charm, quirk, and overall uniqueness. He's an absolute beast in game to make him incredibly fun and fast paced. So ultimately, there's nothing to really dislike about this character, and it seems as though the entirety of the universe is in agreement. Pop Fizz is one of the few Skylanders that there's always a strong opinion about him, and it tends to lean positive at least 95% of the time. And so, naturally, Pop Fizz is the only one who's truly worthy of the Universal Award, in my personal opinion. The next category is for the best 3DS game. Yes, you heard that right, this is one of our new categories, and the winner this year round is going to be Skylanders Swap Force on the Nintendo 3DS. Now, what makes this game the best of any games found on that system is the level design. First of all, it's a lot more varied and creative than previous Skylander games on the 3DS. It's also a longer game, maybe in a bit more of a marathon style with its levels, but that's the same for its console counterpart. Both games have longer levels, mind you, but the greatest part about this game is the introduction to having the Skylander library. So as soon as you scan in a Skylander, that Skylander can be picked out from the pause menu on the bottom screen for eternity within that profile, mind you. So yes, it takes a very long time to scan in all of your Skylanders, but you only have to scan each Skylander once, and so that alone makes this game a lot more playable than previous Skylanders games, and a lot more fun because you're not constantly having to switch out your Skylanders and only tackle a level with 2 at a time. So Swap Force on the 3DS just has the best level design, levels that are really explorative, imaginative, and generally just because of their size and scope, they're so much fun, and it's an absolute package deal. Swap Force on the 3DS is amazing, which is why it's earning this award here tonight. Keeping in theme with the 3DS, our next 2 awards are the Best 3DS Character and the Best 3DS Starter Character, and they are both being won by the same character, that being Igniter, and I'm going to explain to you at the same time why he deserves both. On the 3DS, he's just as beastly as he is on the main console versions. They definitely start you off with this character to show you the potential of how great Skylanders from here could be. Igniter is a unit. He's powerful, he's quick, and he just functions really well alongside the game's mechanics. Like, it's a really great way to showcase Skylanders for the 3DS with this character. Your speed builds up your power, so then your strikes have even more oomph to them. He's just a character that you can never have enough playtime with because he's so much fun, he's so addictive in-game to players, and so Igniter is definitely, when it comes to the 3DS version of Skylanders, still the very greatest one. Our next award tonight is the Best Console Starter Pack Character, which is only appropriate, coming straight after the Best 3DS Starter Pack character, and it's going to be yet another fire character because HammerSlam Bowser is technically a console starter pack character coming from the Nintendo Wii version of Skylanders Superchargers Racing, and he is the very best console starter pack character. If you go back and look at my revised ranking of all 167 unique Skylanders, you'll notice that of all of the console starter pack characters, HammerSlam Bowser is above them all with good reason. As we talked about previously, his design is spectacular, an excellent amalgamation of his history with Nintendo and the cartoon visual style of Skylanders, but then his gameplay on top of that is also fantastic. Everything chains together very well for a really powerful and fast-paced character that I have such a blast playing with. So naturally, HammerSlam Bowser gets the Console Starter Pack Character Award. Okay, so we're just over halfway through the video, so I would like to take this time to remind you to subscribe if you haven't done so already. It would really help me out, and I'd be very appreciative since it could help the channel garner new audiences and remind people that Skylanders is still alive, in our hearts at least, and that's what matters at the end of the day. Naturally, all of that being shoved aside, the next few award categories are pretty different from what we've seen already. There's no real physicality to showcase them, which is why they're going to be presented in a completely unique manner. So without further ado, let's blaze through these next set of awards. The first of these award categories is the Starter Pack Award, given out to the greatest starter pack in Skylanders history, which can come from any system, any version, I suppose you could go as far to say, which is why winning this prestigious award is the Skylanders Trap Team Dark Edition, since it's basically the perfect starter pack. You get an additional trap, which is Chaos, and then you also get an additional Trap Master, which is Dark Wildfire, so not only do you get an absolute beast for the upgraded version of the game, but you also gain access to the fire elemental gates, as they were obviously only accessible by trap masters in Trap Team. So the extra content you get alongside the Dark Edition for Trap Team, just how aesthetically pleasing the packaging is, how well it all meshes together, and just the absolute upgrade this is from the main starter pack is what makes this starter pack, for one, worth getting. It's fantastic. Its traps are also exclusive. You can't get the Super Chaos trap outside of this Dark Starter Pack, and so that is why it has won this here award. Next up is the Element Award, given out to the greatest element of the 10 found in Skylands, and so winning this award is going to be the Fire element, just because Fire has the greatest concentration of characters within it that I absolutely love. We're talking 7 of these Fire characters are in my top 30, and that is something no other element comes close to achieving. So Fire is just an element that is notoriously awesome, and I really connect to and really care for this element. I mean, Fire is part of a channel name, for Pete's sake, so definitely Fire is what is deserving of the Element Award. Next up is the Battle Class Award, which goes to the best battle class of the 10, and in this case that's going to be Knights, since I really care for Knights. They have honour and nobility in battle, and their animations are spectacular. They're also incredibly fast paced, but really overpowered for how quick the attacks are. So not only is their gameplay spectacular, but it's just what they stand for. You still get the personality of Knights within this battle class, and obviously swords are awesome weapons, which there is so much creativity and so much variety in the sword-like shapes and general aesthetics, so naturally Knights are just the most personality-driven and most fun battle class to play around with. Our next award is for Best Mobile Game, which goes to Lost Islands, since this is a very nostalgic mobile game, which those of you who have been with Skylanders since the very beginning would no doubt have fond memories of. It was a simple village builder, but it had so much charm and quirk to it, and obviously it had the Skylanders twists, so there were elemental islands, there were adventures your Skylanders could go on, and whilst you did really do nothing but wait for experience to build up, it was still a ton of fun customizing these islands and making them your own. So naturally, for Skylanders flair made it perfect for Skylanders fans, and it was just overall a really in-depth and well built up game that lasted me for years. I was invested in this game, so Lost Islands is definitely deserving of the Best Mobile Game Award. This next award actually comes from Skylanders Lost Islands itself. We're talking about the best alter ego, which has to be Buttered Popcorn, purely because if you look at this guy, his colours are very drastically different from the original Popcorn, and they add so many aesthetics to make him the perfect film buffs character, and that's exactly how I describe myself. I'm a huge film buff, so the fact that this design personally speaks to me is what I love so much about it. It's just generally a really great and personality driven alter ego. I can definitely imagine Popcorn going to the cinema and wind up coming out of the cinema looking like this, so it's just naturally a very charming and quirky alter ego, to say the least. Next up is the best console game, which has to be Skylanders Trap Team, as this is my favourite game of all time, let alone my favourite Skylanders game. What can I say about this game and its excellence that hasn't already been said? It's incredibly fun, the level design is varied, creative, and the boss battles are just an absolute joy. It adds to the fast-paced nature of the game. The collectibles are really satisfying to pick up, some of them being some of the most hidden collectibles in Skylanders history, mind you. So Skylanders Trap Team just has so many things implemented into it. If you set aside stuff like the glitches and the weaker story, really who cares about them when you have gameplay that is this phenomenal and this much fun to just switch off your brain and play. And even when glitches do happen, it's either aesthetic, which is hilarious, or it creates a skill gap for speedrunners, as you need to learn double jump glitch and the giant double jump glitch. It's very intriguing stuff, which makes Trap Team play unlike any other Skylanders game, and the natural jankiness is what again helps it become all the more unique. So Skylanders Trap Team definitely deserving of the Best Console Game Award. Our next 3 awards are going to be won by the exact same level, because we're talking about the best level, the best adventure pack level, and the best level gimmick, which are all being won by Dark Light Crypt, as this level is phenomenal. It introduces a gimmick where you can switch between worlds to bypass puzzles and enemies, and this was a gimmick so innovative and memorable that the developers wound up using it again twice for 2 more levels, and never did they ever achieve this level of pure geniusness when it came to level design when repeating this gimmick over and over again. This level takes the greatest advantage of this gimmick by introducing it, and then as you go further along you get harder enemies and harder puzzles to have to deal with. It's just overall a really clever level. It's a scenic level with some really nice visuals to it. I mean, the maze and the juxtaposition between the world of the living and the world of the undead is an intriguing one. So naturally, not only does that make it the best level, as it's an adventure pack level, it wins the best adventure pack level award by default also. And it's just got a great gimmick. You know you have a great gimmick on your hands when it's one that has been reutilized several times in Skylanders. So Darklight Crypt has received not 1, not 2, but 3 awards here tonight. Next up is the most scenic level, which has to be the Spellpunk Library, just because of the visual style of the books. Like, yes, the library itself is grand and awesome, but nothing to really write home about. The sheer amount of attention to detail and the amount of books on display is definitely quite the scene, but what really makes this level as scenic as it is are the cel-shaded graphics, which are perfectly transitioned into whenever you explore a book. This feels like the books just visualized, and it's such a clever and unique visual style which no other level comes close to replicating. So just naturally the gorgeousness and the colour here, it's really sharp and contrasting and makes this level all the more scenic for it. Next up is the best battle arena for PvP, and we're talking about the Cyclops Square here, since this is an iconic arena. Whenever you think of PvP battles, this is no doubt the first one that comes to mind. It's the main arena utilised to actually promote the mode in the first place, so naturally the iconicness, the way the stage is built up as well. You have high points, you have traps, there's just all sorts of different strategies you can use to really duke it out with your friends. Even Skylanders that aren't as good as other ones can still win with appropriate strategy and just enough pushing of the be good at video game button, you can go as far to saying. The Battle Arena PvP award definitely goes to Cyclops Square for its memorability, just the natural iconicness, and just how this is the perfect example of a battle arena in PvP. It has everything you need from one, for strategy, for different levels, for traps, and just for natural aesthetic. It's one which, when you say battle arenas and PvP, this one comes to mind first, especially since they used it mainly to promote this mode in the first place. So that goes to show you that it was just as close to developers' hearts, this map, as it is to ours. The next award is the best cutscene, and I'm already starting to sniffle up a bit just from talking about this one, because this is going to be Gloomshank's Sacrifice, no doubt the emotional pinnacle of Skylanders Superchargers and the Skylanders franchise as a whole. Gloomshanks is literally giving himself up so that then the rest of the academy can live to fight another day. And what's even more heartbreaking about this is that Chaos is the one causing all of this destruction, not knowing that Gloomshank's effectively his best friend. He doesn't know he's down there and that he's in mortal danger. Obviously, Gloomshanks didn't actually sacrifice himself, and in the end he winds up in the crosshairs of Pandagast, and we need to rescue him at the Demolition Derby, but we don't know that at the time, and so the music added in the background makes this sacrifice all the more heart-wrenching, and so naturally the emotional highs this cutscene accomplishes is greater than that of any other Skylanders cutscene, hence why Gloomshank's Sacrifice is getting this here award. Next up is the best soundtrack, which you can currently hear in the edit. We're talking about Sky Schooner Docks, which is effectively a longer, non-remixed version of the Magic theme from Giants, and this one is incredibly iconic and memorable. It just feels so fitting for the Skylanders world, and it's one which I use constantly in videos just because it really does add that kind of sense of scope to the videos, I suppose. So again, it's a track that just feels fitting within the context of the Skylanders world, but it's also one that evokes great emotion, and I thoroughly enjoy listening to it. It has memorable beats, and so what other soundtrack is worthy of the soundtrack award here tonight, other than Sky Schooner Docks, mind you? But next up, we're looking at the main theme award, which has to go to Spyro's Adventure, because this one is just so incredibly iconic. When you say Skylanders, this is no doubt the first track that comes to mind. just because it's practically embedded in for nostalgic parts of our brain. It's so memorable, it's so fitting for Skylanders world, and it just gives you such a sense of adventure. You know what you're getting into is gonna be grand and epic when this is the tune you're listening to when the game is first booted up, mind you. So Spice Adventure without a doubt has the best main theme of any of the Skylanders games. But now we're going to move on from soundtracks to racetracks, where the winner of the Best Racetrack Award is going to be Dragon Spine, purely because I love racing on the back of dragons, and for turns of this track as well as for shortcuts, for jumps, they're all epic, really fun, and it's just a really well laid out track, which is an absolute blast to play. It does feel like a bit of a marathon, so I suppose it is a little bit too long, but for speed boosters and the hazards just add to the pace, and there's never a dull moment when you're racing on this track, and that's what makes Dragon Spine such an excellent track. I mean, the graphics are also exceptional, for background details, for colours and their sharp contrasts, mind you, just for general style and layout of this track is what makes it so good, and Dragon Spine without a shadow of a doubt gets the Best Racetrack Award. But how about the main vehicle sections of the game? Well, Cloud Breather's Crag is going to win for best vehicle section, because once again you're riding on the back of a dragon with invaders shooting at it, so it has great background detail. The section itself is a little bit jank, but the fact that you can trick over scales and all sorts, and there's temples along this huge dragon's back, it's such a fine attention to detail, and this all happens after a massive jump onto the back of a dragon, so there really is nothing cooler than riding along the back of a dragon, at least not for me personally, which is why Dragon Spine gets the Best Vehicle Section Award. Next up is the Elemental Gate Award, which is going to be given to the Magic Elemental Gate of the Midnight Museum. Little did I expect that the least favourite element from the Trap Masters, that being the magic element, so this is the only way to access such a gate, and it's coming from my least favourite level in Skylanders Trap Team, and yet somehow the combination of these two terrible factors still result in the best goddamn Elemental Gate in the entirety of the franchise. That is one combination I was not prepared for, and what makes this magical gate so cool is that it completely reinvents an entirely new gimmick for the sake of 30 seconds of gameplay. It gives us a little eye piece, which reminds me of the Eye of Agamotto, which that intertextual reference in of itself is pretty cool, but this way you can see invisible hazards. This gimmick is so clever and so cool for this Magic Elemental Gate that I wish it was implemented in the entirety of the level, or at least some other level had it along the way, because it is such a cool mechanic, and it's a shame they could only utilise it for this one Elemental Gate, because it would have been so cool to have seen this mechanic expanded upon, so we could have got stuff like invisible platforms as well as invisible hazards, invisible enemies even. So yes, the Magic Elemental Gate from Midnight Museum is definitely deserving of this here award. Next up is the Bonus Mission Map Award, which is being awarded to Magic Cells because this bonus mission map actually has the most bonuses to it. It's got variety in its gameplay, which is a bonus in of itself, because you've got to collect things, you've got to dodge things, you've got to jump over hazards, you've got to fight enemies, so just the sheer variety in this bonus mission map is what makes it so fun, but also it's very compact and it's very intense and chaotic and just fast paced in general. This bonus mission map is an absolute blast, which is why I'm very proud to be presenting it with the Best Bonus Mission Map Award here tonight. Next up is the Best Heroic Challenge, which goes to Charm Hunt, because heroic challenges are well known as things that can be tackled by any Skylander, but should you pick specific Skylanders with specific skills, then the heroic challenge will be played in a completely different manner, making it easier or harder, and naturally this really spices up the gameplay and makes the challenge feel unique each time based on which Skylander you pick, and Charm Hunt has the greatest example of that because of its reliance on swimming. You can't find these charms nearly as quickly if you don't have a Skylander who can swim, so a Skylander like Whamshell, who this challenge is designed around, will blaze through it, whereas a Skylander like Boomer will struggle. So just naturally for variety, and the fact that there's practically two heroic challenges in one here is what makes this the highlight of the heroic challenges and why it's worthy of the Heroic Challenge Award. Next up is the Best Villain Quest Award, which has to go to i5's Villain Quest, just because this Villain Quest is chaotic, it is fast paced, and it is so much fun. Not only are you mashing buttons to beat up bad guys as fast as possible, but you're doing it with power-ups as well, which really splice variety into the game, and it's just so much fun to be incredibly destructive. Like, you're obliterating waves upon waves of enemies, and that just sheer destruction, to see the carnage on screen and know that you're the one controlling it, man, it is a blast to say the absolute minimal, which is what makes i5's Villain Quest such an absolute highlight. I really remember this one from Trap Team because of how much of a blast it is and how much it invests me into the gameplay much more. So i5's Villain Quest, without a shot of a doubt, gets the award here tonight. Next up is the best boss battle, which has to go to Traptanium Chaos, as this boss has it all. It has jumping, dodging, attacking, healing with a high risk, high reward type system, because if you just barely avoid the doom shots, you get healed up, but you also risk getting hit at the same time if you don't get the hitbox correct. The overlaying factors make this an absolute, well, chaos. But for sheer difficulty, this is easily the hardest boss fight of the entirety of the franchise, and that's what immerses you. It demands concentration and investment, and so just the absolute excitement. It gets the adrenaline pumping unlike any other Skylanders boss fight, and it's a bit of a marathon of a boss fight too, because it will take you at minimal 8 minutes on easy, and in a nightmare mode we're talking about a 20-25 minute fight here, so it's definitely a final boss. Alright, this is a finale, and it feels that way, especially with the music in the background really adding that excitement and that adrenaline. So Traptanium Chaos just is a boss fight with the best patterns, the most intensity behind it, even the most earned difficulty, because this is Trap Team Nightmare for finale. We deserve some difficulty thrown in there for once, and so having all of that all combined together is what makes Traptanium Chaos the greatest boss fight and worthy of this here award. Next up is Best NPC, which is definitely going to have to be won by Blobbers. He has the most charisma and charm of any of the NPCs out there. You feel sorry for him, but at the same time, he has ultimate power, and so just the meme potential behind his character and the natural unique charm and quirkiness behind him is what makes Blobbers such an absolute legend. He's incredibly memorable. Every single level he's in is upped in quality just by the fact that he's there, because he has horrendous luck, and so when things finally start to go his way in Imaginators and it creates a character arc in of itself, it's not only cleverly written, but it's so rewarding as Skylanders fans to have been invested in this NPC all this time, and for him to ultimately get that character arc that he deserved. Blobbers is just an amazing NPC. Next up is the Sneakiest Collectible Award, which has to go to that one gosh darn treasure chest aerial assault. First of all, you hit a teleporter and you are directed forward, and the moment you go forward you can't come back because there's a drop, and as we all know in Giants you cannot jump. Little was I expecting that you need to head backwards towards the camera for a ledge that is completely off screen with no indication that it's there whatsoever. It takes place directly after a teleport pad, and directly after you've already found like 60 billion collectibles in this water zone. The last place you expect this final treasure chest to be is in the water gate, because it's already had so many collectibles, and it's not even an element you get in the starter pack of Giants, so not everybody is guaranteed to even have a water character. So the fact that you can't access this treasure chest without a water scan, and the fact that it's so well hidden, it comes after a teleport pad when you're purposefully directed away from it, mind you, it is a sneaky treasure chest. It is a meanie treasure chest, and it's a miracle I ever found this, and the fact that I found it by accident in the first place is a testament to what makes this such a sneaky collectible, hence why it gets the award here tonight. Next up is the Chef's Special Award, effectively the best food item to be found in Skylanders, and that has to be orange slices. I mean, first of all, orange slices have a place in pop culture. They're referenced in Skylanders Academy, which is just cute, and orange slices are incredibly nutritious. They really do give you the energy and the boost you need to continue with combat, so naturally they're a healthy option towards boosting you, you know, both in terms of actual physical health as well as just your incentive. If you know there's orange slices involved, then you're going to want to work harder. You know, this is all the meme behind Skylanders Academy, the joke you could say. And so orange slices are just legendary. There are no other food item in Skylanders that come close. Like, sure, there are better tasting ones, but who cares when you have a snack which is nutritious, and on top of that, oranges, like all fruits, have a lot of water, so it's also a little bit of hydration alongside it all. Orange slices are excellent. They are chef's special, hence why they get the award here this evening. Next up is No Upgrades Needed, an award given out to the Skylander who is quite possibly the most overpowered straight out of the box, and we're talking about Boomer here, because his upgrades, sure, they certainly make him better, but who even needs those upgrades when you already have a dynamite lob, which is pretty powerful, and it renews pretty quickly as well, and then he has a pound, which right off the bat deals great damage and knockback, so enemies that come close, you just knock them back and then light them up with a stick of dynamite once again. Boomer is just notoriously good for being a character who's great straight out of the box. If you were to put two Skylanders together straight out of the box into PvP, Boomer would win most of the time, just because he's an absolute unit and his upgrades make him even better. But say he doesn't need them, which is why he's getting this award here tonight. And now we move on from the upgrades needed to the best singular upgrade. This excludes soul gems and wow powers because they'll have their own category coming up next. But the best singular upgrade is the Berserker boost for Pop Fizz, purely because in his beast mode he is incredibly savage and so much fun to play as. And so for chaos and the obliteration, it's fun to master and know that you're the one who's in control of it in the first place. And the fact that you can become desperate when that timer is draining and get rewarded for your skills in the beast mode by defeating enemies and increasing your timer as a result, it just adds to the chaos and the fast pacedness, because it's intense. You need to find that final enemy and defeat them as fast as possible, otherwise you're going to transition back to your regular form, which is not nearly as good, and you'll be put at a disadvantage, especially with the cooldown when you turn from beast form back to his regular form, mind you. So this Berserker boost just really adds your concentration and immersion into the game, because you want to continue to be as savage as possible, defeat enemies as fast as possible, and that just adds to the fast pacing of the character. And it does really re-emphasize his gimmicks and his quirks and his uniqueness. Is what makes Pop Fizz as good as he is, and this Berserker boost is an upgrade that just really mixes up the gameplay and makes it all the more satisfactory at the end of the day. But next up is the awards I was alluding to earlier, both the greatest soul gem ability and the greatest wow power. So starting off with the soul gem ability, it has to be Bushwhacks, as the irony here is excellent. He's a life Skylander, so naturally you'd think he'd want to preserve nature and stop enemies from destroying it. Well, he destroys nature in order to absolutely obliterate them, and you know what, it's just within Bushwhack's nature to be ironic and quirky. So this soul gem ability is a perfect extension of his personality in of itself. But the irony of building a tree just to cut it down again with his massive axe, it is hilarious. And it's so incredibly overpowered too. Like, the damage output on this tree is ridiculous, and it makes its soul gem ability really worth utilizing, but it's also got high risk, high reward because you're very vulnerable whilst doing it. So naturally it's just an attack that is so well thought through and so satisfactory to land. But our best wow power is Speediest to Igniter, because whenever you do his Mega Slam or his Fire Spirit, you don't only deal the initial damage, but you also engulf enemies in blue flames that are left behind by it. So using it strategically, you can create traps for your enemies. Like, as they engage you, you can bring the Fire Spirit back towards you, and then all of a sudden they're literally walking along a trail of blue fire and they are absolutely obliterated by it. The damage that is stacked from this is incredibly cool, and the fact that it's not mindless neither. Like I said earlier, you need that strategy, otherwise if the wow power goes to waste, and it's that cleverness that really adds yet another level of depth to Igniter's already unique and depthful gameplay. So the wow power is just really a great accompanying tool to turn Igniter from what is already an exceptional Skylander to something even grander, and that's why Speediest to Igniter definitely deserves the best wow power award here tonight. Next up is the best healing ability, which has to go to Scratch, because she heals whenever you grab treasure, and naturally you want to grab treasure anyway, but this gives you an extra incentive even when you're maxed out on treasure to pick up the treasure as you get healed along the way. So the fact that treasure is everywhere makes this healing ability incredibly overpowered, and by extent that makes Scratch incredibly overpowered. It's a really memorable ability too. Of all of the soul gems, this is one that comes to mind as one of the most unique and memorable, because sure, we have other healing abilities, but none of that are directly tethered towards the treasure you grab. Like, normally in Skylanders, literally the only reason to grab treasure is to upgrade yourself, and ironically you need to grab enough treasure in order to acquire this upgrade with Scratch. Once you've spent all that treasure, collecting over more treasure is satisfactory, it's rewarded, and it's paid off for by such an excellent, unique and memorable healing ability, mind you. Next up is the best attack animation, which is going to come from Ambush's primary attack chains, purely because you get a number of animations based on when you press the button, you know, based on how long you wait between each button press. So the fact that the animations are mixed up each time, but they also look really fluent. Like there's flips, there's kicks, there's tricks, and so naturally all of these combination of attacks together makes for animation incredibly unique and based on historical accuracies, because it's based on ancient battle arts, which makes Ambush just look like a really artistic character, adds style and personality to his design even further. And having an epic sword like that, you actually feel it swinging with the animation and their fluency. So naturally there was a lot of heart and passion poured behind this character. They did a great job making his attacks just look and feel authentic and historically accurate. So Ambush, for uniqueness behind the animations and just for level of detail, is what makes him worthy of this here award. Next up is the best combo attack, which is actually going to be Chop Chop's secondary combo. Now this isn't necessarily anything to write home about. There are definitely combinations which do more damage or do things more unique to splice up the gameplay, but what I love about this attack so much is the forward momentum you are given. It really adds a lot more pacing, quicker pacing that is, to Chop Chop's moveset. It's a combo which is go-to for me, so the fact that this combination is one that sticks with me, it's memorable, and it's one that I always rely on in combat, is what makes it as good as it is. Like truly, this is a flagship combination for Skylanders. When you think of Skylander combos, this is no doubt one that comes to mind first, just because of the momentum you get with it even. My apologies for that stutter right there. I'm just so intimidated by Chop Chop's secondary combo. I tell you what, if he came swinging at me like that as an enemy, I would be terrified. So yeah, there is the stuttering to emphasize the absolute awesomeness behind Chop Chop's secondary combo, and that's why it's getting the award here tonight. The next up is going to be for best charged attack, which once again, this might not necessarily be the best charged attack, but it certainly is one of the most memorable and most iconic. When I say the word charged attack, no doubt this is one that comes to mind, because we're talking about Bash, a charged attack which really doesn't take all that long to charge up, but boy do you feel the power behind it. There is a sound effect, just that swoosh, you see the speed to it too. Bash spins so quickly that you don't even see the attack land, but you see the damage that it deals. Bash's fully charged hail swing is an absolute powerhouse for unit that can one-shot pretty much most enemies, and so that makes Bash incredibly cool and memorable thanks to the might of this charge attack. It is easily the most memorable one that Skylanders has to offer because it's iconic. It came from the very first game, and for Spyro's Adventure standards, a single attack that deals 80 damage is ridiculous. So Bash, this charge attack is spectacular and very much deserving of the best charged award here tonight. But next up is coolest hat, which has to be for miniature Skylands, just because it's Skylands but miniature. The amount of attention to detail on this hat is fantastic, and it's also a really great nostalgic piece because it has everything on there to remind you of Skylands and of itself. It has so much iconic symbology to it, just for windmill, for hut, for actual island itself. It's an incredibly cool hat, which I have the honour of putting onto any Skylander of my choice from Trap Team onwards. So that sheer attention to detail to it, and the fact that it represents what makes Skylanders so special as a whole, is a great reflection of this fictional world, and it's a colourful hat too. There's some sharp contrasts and colours. There literally is nothing to fault with this hat, which is why it's by far the coolest one in existence. Next up we have Coolest Merchandise Award, which is one that's being given to custom controllers, as it's a very personal choice of mine, since I used to test custom video game controllers as a career until unfortunately our factory got shut down and I got made redundant. That's just for living world for you, for working world I should say. But people had to work on these custom controllers and they had to test them too, not necessarily as a full controller, because these are just shells of controllers that you apply to your already pre-existing controllers, but that makes them cheaper. It means you don't have to go out and buy an entire controller, you're just buying a shell for it. Hopefully you don't damage the shell in placing it down, mind you. But point is, having controllers, things that are key to actually playing with Skylanders games in the first place, and having them customized to be Skylander-ified items is so huge. There's that personal connection I have with them already, which I literally just spent the last 30 seconds explaining about. So just being able to have controllers that match the game you're playing, to be able to play as a Skylander in a Skylanders game with a Skylanders controller, is just really all themed and it looks aesthetically pleasing. So these merchandise options are definitely ones that I'd recommend for those of you who don't have them already. Custom controllers are exceptional, they have a personal connection to me, and that's why they get the Coolest Merchandise Award. So this next anthology of awards are the Netflix Awards. So these are all the awards given out to the TV show Skylanders Academy. And our first of the anthology is going to be for Best Netflix Episode, which has to be for Season 2 finale, Touch of Evil, because this episode has a little bit of everything. It takes massive risks for starters because of the ending twist where they turn Spyro into Dark Spyro, making an evil version out of a very much beloved character. So first of all, getting to see those alternate colours on Spyro, based on, of course, Skylanders mythology in the first place. It's really cool seeing that, and for risk you applaud, because you take this beloved character and turn them evil. Imagine how that could have thrown kids off of the show and made them not want to watch it, and yet they went ahead and took that risk anyway. But Touch of Evil also just has a great attention to detail, even when it comes to its animation and its action sequences, which are grand in scope and they are very intense. It makes the episode as a whole very fast-paced and very emotionally investing, you could go as far to say. Boy, I'm stuttering just because this level impresses me to that level of degree. Touch of Evil is a fantastic episode which does a great job bringing character arcs of this season to an end, concluding the story, as well as setting up what Season 3 has to offer, and just doing it all with a grand scope and emotional investment on a level that no other Netflix episode is capable of. The writing here is truly exceptional, as is the animation. Like I said earlier, for visuals, there's just a natural crispness to them. The animations are fluid and it looks fantastic with background animation and the colour contrast to go along with it all. But the next award is the Best Netflix Character, which has to go to Stealth Elf. Of all of the characters, she has some of the most unique charm and quirkiness behind her. The voice actress does a really great job bringing this character to life and making her feel like she has layers, and they really do bring humanity to this elf of all creatures. And her relationship with all the other Skylanders is also what makes her such a investing and memorable character. So Stealth Elf is definitely the best character that Academy has to offer. But next up is the Best Netflix Season. Unfortunately, after Season 3 they did cancel the show, and this was just when the show was starting to get exceptional, because each season of the show they got better, and Season 3 is the finest example of that, because this season has some of the most creative episodes, as well as episodes that tie into one another, like the events of the episode prior affect the events of the next episode, and so this continual story is investing from beginning to end. There is a massive sense of scope, and the stakes here are bigger than usual, so it's just a really investing season of the show with really excellent character development. The animation again is at its finest. It's crisp, it's quality. The animations themselves are fluent with some nice sharp contrast in the colours, and just naturally well designed and detailed background elements. It's a season which is truly exceptional and creative, and everything you'd want from an excellent season of Skylanders Academy, you could go as far to say. But next up is the Best Netflix Thumbnail. Every single episode of the show has a thumbnail, and so this thumbnail winning the award is known as Assault on Skylander Academy, just because it has a nice unity shot. We have most of the Skylanders in shot here, so just seeing them all together and united is incredibly cool. And on top of that, you see in the background classic Skylanders symbology with the core of light, so having that in the background is incredibly cool. As a Skylanders fan, you can really nerd out and see that core of light for what it is. It's a massive motivational boost to fans of the series to watch through this episode. It's just a thumbnail that does a great job kind of explicitly stating what this episode is about, why it should be beloved by Skylanders fans, and plus it has that unity shot showing the Skylanders' strength in numbers. But next up, the final of the Netflix anthology is the Best Netflix Moment, awarded to whatever moment in the show I deem to be the best one, and that has to be the duel of the two Spyros, because for Dark Spyro and Spyro duking it out, not only is it a legendary action set piece with awesome choreography and really fluid and crisp animation, everything we've come to love from Season 3, but there's also a really great visualization of Spyro's arc he's gone through this entire episode, with his dark personality and his light personality just really thrashing it out. And the light Spyro obviously gets support from his friends, and that's what motivates him to beat Dark Spyro in the end. So that interrelationship model, that is really the true fight going on here, rather than just the fists and the fireballs and the flights, which again, for aerial combat is unique to Spyro. They make this fight unique for Spyro. Stealth Elf couldn't do this fight, so not even against herself, and naturally
that uniqueness to it, and just the fact that this is the culmination of Spyro's entire arc throughout the season is what makes this such a powerful and entertaining fight, and it's the best moment from the entirety of the show, mind you.
So we are back here with the setup for our final few award categories of the evening, and this trilogy of awards is what I call the dual awards, where we get multiple winners because they're all grouped under the same category, I suppose. And the first award category of which is going to be Supercharger Combination. Now we have Power Blue Double Dare Trick Happy and Power Blue Gold Rusher to stand in for regular versions, because these two are one hell of an aesthetically pleasing combination, both of which showcase a real Vegas style showmanship, which Double Dare Trick Happy, even, he's known for it. He's a stuntsman, for Pete's sake, so having the helmet and the vest and just all of the gear and the firing around his guns, it just really creates this sense of showmanship. It evolves Trigger Happy's design beyond what we've seen already, and so overall, these two characters, not only are they both really fun gameplay wise, but they just match each other so incredibly aesthetically to make this a Supercharger combination unlike any other, and it makes them the greatest Superchargers combination for that matter, which is why they're getting this award tonight. But our next award is the greatest Skylanders triple pack. There is no triple pack that comes close to something as glorious as Flashwing, Double Trouble, and Gilgren. Two of these characters are in my top 10 favourites of all time, and there's no other triple pack which possesses that sort of honour. So this is definitely the triple pack deserving of the greatest triple pack award. And then our final dual award is the Resourcefulness Award. Now both these characters are incredibly resourceful. Blastermind is incredibly efficient at using his head. I mean, that's where his Traptanium is found, so that's where all his power comes from. He puts mind over matter, which is really resourceful. But Drobot here, he was able to make his suit of armor from a box of scraps on a remote deserted island. Really reminds me of Iron Man, that, so he has the same kind of intellect and resourcefulness as Tony Stark, and so who better to give the Resourceful Award to than the tag team of Drobot and Blastermind. But that pretty much does it for all our dual categories. Let's end off with some of our more traditional awards to be handed out. Our next award category of which is going to be the Ultimate Award, given out to the Skylander who I feel like would have the greatest Super Smash Bros. Potential, hence why it's called the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Award, I suppose. Hence why it's called the Ultimate Award, I would suppose. And this award is actually going to be given out to Grim Creeper. Yet again, a bit of a surprise, maybe even a letdown for some, but Grim Creeper here has some of the greatest potential for a Super Smash Bros. Moveset of any Skylander, simply because of the range of moves he could do with his scythe, and the fact that he could have two different forms, especially in his spirit form where he leaves his body. He could even play similar to a combination of Ike and Rosalina, so there are already characters in Ultimate that function similar to how Grim Creeper could, so the mechanics and the potential there are definitely lied out. All what we need now is the red carpet to lead Grim Creeper to the game, mind you. We're just waiting on that invitation of his, an invitation which is long overdue, because Grim Creeper would be awesome in Super Smash Bros. Of any Skylander. I feel like he would not only fit along the cast for most, but also his gameplay could be not only unique, but just something that would mesh well with other Super Smash Bros. Type gameplay styles, something that you could pick up and learn and master. So Grim Creeper here, definitely deserving of the Ultimate Award, to say the least. Next up is the Showmanship Award, which means it's time for the return of Power Blue Double Dare Trick Happy here. We did allude to earlier about what makes him such a great showsman. I mean, at the end of the day, like, he is dressed to impress with that costume and the ring around his gun that's made of fire. Just the pointing finger he has is very Vegas style, and it looks like he is definitely one for the crowd. I mean, at the end of the day, he is tossing golden coins, there's vaults involved and fireworks. Truly a charismatic performance created by the exhibitionist, which is Double Dare Trick Happy, making him very worthy of this hero award tonight. The next award category is known as the Best Soul Seeker. So naturally, this Soul Seeker came from the Giants series here on the channel, where he was able to seek out an incredinormous 8 souls, and we're talking about none other than Swarm, the Soul Seeker of 8 characters from that series. That is a massive number, one that no other Soul Seeker has came close to, which definitely makes Swarm our most efficient and most valued Soul Seeker of them all. He's just out there seeking every single one of them souls, it feels like. I mean, 8 is half the cast, for Pete's sake, so Swarm, massive kudos to you, my man. You are a great Soul Seeker, and that's putting it mildly. Our next category is the most valued player. Now this is a pool between all of the MVPs of the Lock series we've had on the channel, and of those pool of MVPs, definitely our greatest one today is Wallop. He was able to single-handedly master the Skylanders Trap Team Trapmaster Nightmare lock because of just how beastly his attacks are. He absolutely ravaged any foes that came in his wake. It makes me wish there was more Earth Elemental areas in the game, because that would have gave us the potential to obliterate enemies further with Wallop. He just really proved his worth, and there was no way the lock could have been beatable without this absolute unit you see before you, which is why I give no hesitation for Wallop to receive this very prestigious MVP award that you see before you. But our final award of the evening is called the Big Winner. This award goes to the Skylander who has just been receiving award after award after award. And you know what? It's easy to see why this character won as big as he did tonight. We're talking about Igniter, who has now won 9 awards, including this one. There is definitely a lot of bias going on, and these games are very clearly rigged, but I care less because it means that Igniter gets his spot on the pedestal tonight, and he truly deserves it. These awards he have won, he didn't just win them, he absolutely blazed over the competition because of his just absolute raw, untamed awesomeness. Yeah, I am so proud of my boy before you. He is an excellent Skylander, in fact the very best Skylander if you were to ask me. So he has earned our Big Winner award for the evening, the very last award of the Quickees. And just like that, this year's Skylanders Awards Ceremony is coming to a close. I hope you enjoyed the 100 awards quickie style of it all. There was so many great awards I handed out this year, unique and creative ones, and ones that were exclusive to this year's award ceremony. Some of these award categories are not going to be appearing ever again, and so it's been an absolute blast recording this video, getting through things as quickly as I have with a quick snappy pace that I'm not usually accustomed to, so that's why I'm hoping you all enjoyed this year's award ceremony. And maybe next year won't be so late, we'll have to wait and see, but that's, you know, for 2023 to decide. Now without further ado, let's roll that outro. With that being said and done, this video is coming to an end, and I want to thank you all so much for watching. By merely clicking on this video, you've shown support and helped it garner recognition so it can reach many of the viewers here on YouTube. I'd love to see you take the extra step and leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Also be sure to comment below and push that subscribe button whilst you're down there. By clicking elsewhere on screen, you can either check out a video that's specifically picked out for you, or you can check out the rest of the playlist for the series you just watched. Before ending off, I'd like to thank all of my Blazing Knights and Scorching Dragons whose support helped make these videos possible. I'll be seeing you in the next video, and until that moment arises, peace!